Hmm? Let's change this history. Have you ever been kept up at night thinking of the fall of the Western Roman Empire? Well, same here. Hello my brothers and sisters of the Order, I'm Celtic Templar, and today y'all we're actually going to get into another redoing history video. And to pretty much summarize, we're actually going to be covering what if the Western Roman Empire never fell? What would have actually changed, and what could have actually caused the entirety of it? And what could actually help the Western Roman Empire in the process thrive out long after? Well, to quote none other than Blue from Over the Stochastic Projections, let's redo some history. And when we think of the Western Roman Empire, pretty much when people think of it, it looked like this. Well, this was at the height of its power. Because it went from this to this, before its fall. So, what could we change to actually help this out in the future? Well, let's actually take a look at none other than Emperor Majorian. During our point in time in history, Majorian was actually one of the emperors that actually tried to rebuild the Roman Empire from the ground up. In fact, this is the map that none other than Emperor Majorian had to end up dealing with. Most of his areas were actually conquered by either the Vandals, Visigoths, and various type of forms. In doing so, the Western Roman Empire was somewhat divided into major forms, with the Franks in the north, the Visigoths across the Danube, and as well the region of Brittany and its variation of the Carthaginian areas controlled by the Vandals. So, what could we end up seeing Majorian end up doing? One, Majorian in our own timeline could end up actually doing something a lot more different, meaning he's not as trustworthy as he was in our own timeline. What do I mean by this? Simple. Majorian's own defeat was actually caused because he trusted too many of the wrong people. In doing so, Majorian doesn't actually trust his command structure, and in doing so, he ends up having rotating shifts on his naval fleet in Iberia. In doing so, the fleet isn't burned, and in doing so, he can easily retake Carthage by surrounding it and later putting it to destruction. After retaking the region of Carthage and a variation of the islands, we could probably end up seeing Majorian actually doing reforms in the city of Rome, upon which he would end up having to face off against one of his old friends, Ricimer, who of which was actually the man who actually, in our own timeline, had him executed. So, in his alternate timeline, he doesn't trust Ricimer, and Ricimer is put to the sword. Because of the reforms, we could probably end up seeing Majorian's empire grow exponentially throughout the entirety of history. In other words, the Western Roman Empire retakes its former lands. With the military reforms, the Western Roman Empire has a more structured border, and as well, it can easily hold off against various raids. However, we could probably even see the kingdom of the Ostrogoths and the kingdom of the Franks establishing themselves even further beyond the Danube and Rhine River, mainly due to the support of the Western and Eastern Roman empires, allowing them to actually further expand their own kingdoms in order to have a buffer zone between various tribes that try to enter the empire. This also comes to the point by the time of the 6th century, the Justinian campaigns are not to retake the Western Roman Empire, but to actually conquer parts of the east, mainly against the Sassanid Empire, and as well into the further north. In doing so, none other than the Roman general Belisarius is used to conquer the eastern regions. Belisarius might actually get a very good chunk out of the Sasanian Empire. In doing so, this would actually broker a type of peace treaty between the Eastern and as well the Sassanid Empire. However, things are not exactly to last, as by the time of the 7th century, the Muslim conquest during this time, known as the Rashidun Caliphate, would end up actually coming around. The Caliphate would end up swarming parts of the Eastern Roman Empire, attacking and as well as sacking various cities, especially in the regions of Egypt, and as well in the southeastern end of the Eastern Roman Empire. The East calls for the Roman Empire for aid. In doing so, the Eastern Roman Empire asks for the Western Roman Empire to help them out in this type of conflict. And so, the East and West campaign together to push back the entirety of the said Islamic forces. In doing so, we could probably even end up seeing the city of Mecca being threatened with a further eastern expansion to the south. This would probably even cause the Rashidun Caliphate to actually surrender and as well make a peace treaty with the Eastern Roman Empire. However, we cannot say the same about the Sassanid Empire, as it would probably end up falling to the Rashidun Caliphate. There is no great battle of Tours, but there probably is a great battle of the Sinai, the great battle of Jerusalem, and so on. In doing so, Islam doesn't exactly have a conquest or as well even a foothold in the area of the Middle East. In doing so, it's just forced to the Far East. With this, we could probably end up seeing the Eastern Roman Empire and the Western Roman Empire expanding their territory and borders pretty much through the form as you see here. In fact, the East would end up having to conquer various regions in the north, while the said Western Roman Empire would expand along the said western coasts of Africa. I don't know if they would try and retake Britain, but it seems that the fact that Rome's biggest concern is its border. So, probably not. With the expansion of the West, also comes the expansion of the Ostrogothic and as well Frankish kingdoms. The Frankish Empire is still emerging in its own type of form and way. However, it's not exactly like we end up seeing in our own timeline. What do you mean by this? Simple. Its expansion isn't towards the south. It's not in the region of Gaul, nor Italy, or all of Germany. It's just north of the Rhine. As well, in our own timeline, we could probably even see the great schism between Sunni and Shiites as we did in our own timeline, while the entirety of the empires are still holding and as well fully reconstructing their military. All the while, the Franks could probably end up adopting various type of customs and equipment from the said Western Roman Empire the most. In fact, in our own timeline, the Frankish Empire ended up having various type of units actually looking identical to that of the said former Western Roman Empire. So we could probably end up seeing them, well, somewhat near identical to that. As well, the Frankish Empire would actually grow in power, mainly due to its military forms. And in fact, this could actually be caused by none other than the Frankish Emperor or King Charlemagne, who of which would expand his empire in the name of Christendom. However, if we do know one from our own timeline, he would actually end up becoming really buddy-buddy with the said church. And in this alternate timeline, he would be buddy-buddy with the said Roman Empire. In doing so, the Frankish Empire expands in the name of Christendom and as well in the name of Rome. However, after Charlemagne's death, we pretty much already know where this is going to go. The great divide between the three brothers. Only two of them can end up emerging. This great divide would end up having two types of empire, the Frankish Empire and the Eastern Frankish Empire. However, I could probably end up calling it the Germanic Empire or as well the Slavonic Empire. Honestly, there is no name I can end up thinking that which could end up working for it, so if any of y'all have any ideas, let me know. Expansion would still take place in our own history and timeline, so we could probably end up seeing an eastern expansion of the said Eastern Frankish Empire, as well with the said Ostrogothic Empire, the said Eastern Roman Empire as well. Because of this, we could totally see a different variation of a border expansion. However, as well, the East would probably end up losing various territories in the far south, mainly due to other caliphates end up taking over and breaking up the treaty, but in which the most major thing that actually changes for the Western Roman Empire would be that of the Viking raids. In our own timeline, the Viking raids were such a menace to the regions of the said European continent, we could probably end up seeing the Vikings actually establishing themselves in their own type of kingdoms all throughout the entirety of the Western Roman Empire, mainly along the Atlantic coast. Reason being, one, the Western Roman Empire has the said military navy in the said Mediterranean. However, I can still see the Vikings establishing kingdoms and as well raiding throughout the regions in history. In fact, even in our own timeline, a city that which was mistaken for Rome was actually raided along the said Italian peninsula. However, with the great city of Rome still now around and not in ruins, we could probably even see the sacking of Rome and as well even the said conquest of various regions. So much so that one, even the Roman fleet can't exactly chase after these said Viking longboats. In fact, I know y'all know what a Viking longboat can do. It can sail up rivers. Roman triremes? Not so much. In such, we could probably even see the Western Roman Empire losing territory due to various types of civil wars. In fact, even in our own timeline, we could even see this actually happening in many types of forms. For one, the Gallic Empire emerged in our own timeline, and it could probably emerge yet again, with a vassal state of the Normans. No matter what, there would be different variation of Viking kingdoms that would establish themselves all throughout the entirety of Europe. We could also see this with the region of Iberia and as well the region of Carthage. Reason being, these kingdoms end up separating from the Western Roman Empire is for one major reason. They are the borders. And because they are the border, guess what? They get the worst of the treatment of the said invasions. In doing so, they actually would feel like it would be best that they separated from the Western Roman Empire. In our own timeline, this happened with the Gallic and the Pomeranian Empire during the 3rd century crisis. Because of this, we could probably end up seeing the various kingdoms such as the Kingdom of Iberia, the Kingdom of Carthage, and as well the Gallic Empire emerge yet again. All the while, the Western Empire is having to lick its wounds and try and rebuild and redo its military in order to retake and reconquer. By the end of the Viking Age, we could probably end up seeing various kingdoms still around. However, we could probably end up seeing that one, Rome could end up reconquering its regions in parts of Sicily, Corsica, and so on. However, I don't think it would be able to hold on to, nor as well even further hold on to its empire. Mainly because, one, the empire is still no more. During the 11th century, we could also see a various type of form of military waves with conflicts, mainly in the region of the East. The Eastern Roman Empire is having to deal with the said nomadic horsemen, who of which raid and destroy various cities along their route. This could end up leading to the fact that one, even the said Eastern Roman Empire's province in Egypt could actually separate as well, and become known as the Kingdom of Egypt. These could end up having to deal with a new form of crusades or conflicts with the new steppe people on their doorstep. However, if we know one thing from our own time in history, the region of Egypt was actually the said breadbasket to the said Eastern Roman Empire. In doing so, we could probably see the Eastern Roman Empire and as well the Egyptian kingdom actually unifying together in order to push back the said nomadic forces. The Eastern Roman Empire and the said Kingdom of Egypt could probably work together in order to hold their borders and even recover lost territory. In doing so, this could lead to a peace treaty between the two empires. All the while, the Western Empire could actually probably lead itself into retaking and reclaiming various lost territory in the region of Gaul, along with the said Normans. Now, this could end up leading to one major way, but if we know one thing about the Western Empire, when it's actually having to face off against various kingdoms, something bad always happens. Because the West is so preoccupied with facing off against the said Gauls, its entirety southern border is now at threat from the region of Carthage. Carthage could end up retaking the various islands and even taking the mainland of said Italy. So much as it's a threat that even the Western Empire has to deal with, and they have to call out the campaign. Gaul ends up winning these various victories and can even force off the Normans from the said mainland of Gaul. All the while, the Western Empire would have to reclaim and retake various regions in the said southern parts of Italy. Over time, we could probably see the Normans actually claiming various lands and holdings in the region of Wales and Cornwall, as well battling off against the Scots. While the Eastern Empire and as well the Egyptian Empire further control and retake various holdings, and as well push back various nomadic people. And in doing so, we could even see the Ostrogothic kingdom actually establishing itself and pushing back various other nomadic people in the process. However, by the time in our own history, we can also end up seeing the nomadic Mongol Empire emerging into parts of Italy, pushing back various steppe people, and as well even conquering regions in parts of the Ostrogothic and as well Byzantine Empire. Doing so, we can end up seeing various holdings and as well put conquests from the said Mongol forces. And just like in our own timeline, we could probably even see the Fourth Crusade in an alternate version. Seeing the fact there is no crusade, we could probably end up seeing a said Roman Emperor Alexius making a deal with the said Ostrogothic kingdoms in order to actually call for military units in order to claim his supposed crown. Now, keep in mind, this happened no matter what point in history in our own timeline. In fact, both the West and the Eastern Empire had this, so it still would not have ended well. So just like in our own timeline, Alexius is pretty much dethrones the Roman Emperor, and himself is later dethroned and killed, causing the entirety of the Latin Empire. Because of this, we could probably even see the downfall of the Eastern Empire as it fragments and as well splits away, as well loses various territories in the parts of the European and as well region of Turkey. However, long after the Latin Empire, we can end up seeing the rise of the said Byzantine yet again. However, it does not have much control or power as it once did, as it has to slowly regain its territory. All the while, the Ottomans end up becoming stronger and stronger over time, to the point that one, the Byzantine Empire, or Eastern Empire as you want to call it, would end up having to deal with one problem. One, the Ottomans are moving in, and this would later lead to the downfall of the said Eastern Roman Empire. The East is now conquered, and in doing so, we could probably even see the Ottomans becoming a major threat to the various regions all throughout the parts of Europe. Pretty much all the while Europe is still embroiled in many conflicts, we could probably even see the entirety of Europe end up varying the various conflicts with itself, Italy would still end up having to deal with one conflict too many, and end up establishing its own type of various kingdoms. The entirety of the Roman Empire is still around but it has to deal with various conflicts for all around it. In order to actually make a peace treaty with the said Carthaginian kingdom, it would probably end up retaking various islands off its coast. The kingdom of Sicily is still in the hands of Carthage. Carthage would actually expand itself even further along the said coast of Africa, and all the while it could expand in our own timeline. Now, before anyone starts asking, yes, Americas can still end up colonizing our own timeline. However, we could pretty much end up seeing that Carthage takes the place of Portugal, and as well, Iberia takes the place of Spain, all the while Gaul takes the place of France. So, yeah, we can see where this goes. If we fast forward to none other than the 19th century, we could probably even see the rise of Napoleon Bonaparte. Being born on the island of Corsica, he could end up actually becoming one of the major generals underneath the said Roman Emperor. The Roman Empire would end up seeing his greatness in battle. And as well, due to the fact of the Gallic Revolution, just like in our own timeline, we could probably end up seeing a revolution in the region of Gaul, or in that timeline, in our timeline, known as France, but in this alternate timeline, known as the Gallic Empire, would have to go through a Gallic Revolution. Because of this, Napoleon would see his chance and immediately become a major general in order to reclaim lost lands for the Roman Empire. In doing so, we could end up seeing various islands being retaken and as well restructured in the name of the Roman Emperor. Gaul would end up being invaded and slowly conquered. Over time, we could even see the region of Iberia in the name of the Roman Emperor. Napoleon might even actually marry into the royal family. In doing so, he has much more of a claimant, and as well, he could even become what we would call a Caesar of the New Rome. Carthage would easily be retaken and as well conquered. In doing so, the Western Empire is even stronger than it once was. In doing so, this new empire is even stronger than it once was in our own timeline. Majorly because, one, Napoleon in our own timeline was a genius tactician. In doing so, he could actually reconquer and reclaim various holdings in the name of Rome. Over and over, the Roman Empire would end up reclaiming various lands and as well try and reclaim various holdings into the region of Europe. He might even go as far as to actually try and conquer the region of the Ottoman Empire. Over time, the Ottomans would end up losing their various holdings and end up being forced back. Even into the south of the Egyptian Empire, we could end up seeing the fall of the said monarchy altogether, so much so that they might even become vassal kingdoms. The Roman Empire has returned. But for how long? We can end up understanding that none other than Napoleon would end up expanding the Roman Empire even to its entire fullest, conquering the Frankish and as well Eastern Frankish empires, and as well expanding even further into Russia. However, if we know one thing in our own timeline, Napoleon ended up losing various battles because of the winter cold, and so on and so on. In doing so, Napoleon is defeated, deposed, and as well even forced to become, well, an outcast. Italy has now lost more land than it has ever done in our timeline. Gaul claims lands, so does the Ostrogothic kingdom, and as well, even the kingdom of Serbia. Rome loses its entirety of holding of becoming a major power. Now comes the question, what about Africa? What changes that has happened? Well, as you see from this timeline and map, this is the major example that we can understand. Carthaginian and Egyptian empires would emerge pretty much mostly in the north. However, Carthage could end up establishing various holdings in the region of Africa in order to establish itself throughout the region. All the while, Gaul establishes its own trade system as well. The Frankish Empire as well takes the place of Germany, and in doing so, Britain also claims its own lands. So in doing so, not much has actually changed, only slightly various in type forms. However, in our own timeline, there is also the entirety of World War I. Now, if we know one thing about World War I in our own timeline, this does not end well for the said Central Powers. The Central Powers will be made up of the various different kingdoms, such as the Frankish, Ostrogothic, Eastern Frankish Empire, as well as the Ottoman. So, pretty much the Russian Empire, the Britannic Empire, the Gallic Empire, and as well the Italian Empire end up emerging and pushing back the various kingdoms in order to reestablish themselves and hold off against the entirety of the said conflict. In doing so, we could probably end up seeing Europe still go the same way as it did in our own timeline. The only difference is its borders. But in such, the Roman Empire doesn't fall, but it is actually known as the Republic of Rome, or the Republic of Italy. In doing so, Rome doesn't fall, but yet it becomes a central type monarchy into its type form. In other words, the monarchy is still somewhat around, but by World War II, I don't think the entirety of the emperors will be around anymore. As for World War II, well, we can pretty much already see what's going to happen with Benito Mussolini. He takes power, and, well, we already know what's going to happen in Rome. So, yeah, the entirety of the Western Roman Empire, upon its fall, would still emerge, but it wouldn't destroy the West. It would extremely hold to its type form. Doing so, the Western Roman Empire never falls, and it stands forever. Thank you for watching. Hopefully you like and subscribe, and as well watch many more of our redoing history videos, as very soon we will be getting what if the city of Constantinople never fell. This one I'm kinda curious to end up thinking about, so yeah. Anyways, hopefully you like and subscribe, and as well check out some of our other videos, and as well y'all, if y'all have any type of video you want me to do of redoing history, please let me know in the comments below. I'll be happy to get right into it. Anyways guys, with Celtic Templar, hope to see y'all in the next one. Have a great day y'all.